are starting with class lab activity. It should be, did you get the code? You don't need the code anymore, right?
Usually,
just,
yeah.
teach you in. But if you do need the code, it's up here, 5402-1291, and the question is on the board. Everyone have a good character strong. Everyone make their whoop goals. Whoop.
I went to that activity thing.
Michael, what activity thing?
That thing where they were like giving scholarships to.
Signing.
Oh, signing?
Was I supposed to sign something?
No, probably not.
That's going to be college sports. They're signing.
Why did
college sports.
I was some people there, but not everybody.
Well, not everyone's playing sports.
Well, no, why were some people there to see it?
Because it's like their best friend. It's like a big day for them. It's like almost as important as graduation.
Okay, but then why was I invited to that?
You were or weren't?
I was. I was.
Like, no, it's just your classroom.
In my classroom.
Did your whole class go? Yeah.
Why would that happen?
Because the teacher
Because
probably
the class
wanted
probably didn't want
wanted to go.
Oh, he's so lazy.
Teacher didn't want to do the.
Whoa, no way! A lazy teacher.
Okay, so
I'm just kidding. Our
let's.
teachers are all very hard working. Our teachers are the best.
Okay, majority will put A. Will one person change their mind really quickly? And so all the following will shift it to the right, or which of the following will shift it to the right. So consumer income, that's aggregate demand. An increase of regulation shifts it to the left. Why? Why would more regulation shift aggregate supply curve to the left, Carson? You have to follow all these laws and rules. You have more time spent doing that and less time actually producing. So that's why there would be less production. An increase of wages for workers, you have to pay them more. Why? And that would shift to the left because of why? And the price of labor. And so if you, like, here's a piece of board things, I need more room on my walls, really. I need taller, bigger walls. But it would be an input price. If you had to pay your workers more, you can't buy other things because you're paying them to more, so you're supplying less. But an increase in productivity is correct because you're more productive, you're working more, producing more. New questions should be on your phone momentarily, like right now. Similar questions, just asking it differently.
Have we seen that word before?
What word? Ceteris paribus, yes? Does anyone remember what ceteris paribus means? Kenny? Other things equal or all other variables remain constant, but it is Latin, and if looks could kill. You should have heard Bella's whoop goal earlier. That's really good. To achieve your goal, you had to drop out of high school? Was it a legitimate goal?
Michael is crazy.
What's your goal, Chris?
I wanted to keep it.
What's that?
Oh, you need a good job. I can get $60,000. So.
You get a good job, you can buy it.
Actually, you should stay in school to get that
So
money.
your car.
Because of lack of the dealers right now and
I don't want.
tomball drug. Anyway, whoops.
Okay, still waiting for a couple people to submit their answers.
Oh, I didn't know. Sorry, I forgot.
Yeah, it's you teachers.
Okay, I'm done. Keep going.
No.
Are you done?
Yeah.
Okay, who are we waiting on? I can see who we're waiting on.
Shame them. Shame.
Oh. There. I'm shaming Luis and Georgia. Shame. Okay. What? So it says, oh yay, these are the right answer. I said it just earlier, but does anyone know the difference between, I think I said this yesterday, maybe in passing, I don't know if I wrote it down, the difference of income and wage.
Yeah.
Ramses?
Income is how much money you're earning, and wage how much your boss is paying.
Right, so which one is going to be a demand shifter?
Your income.
Your income, because that's how much you're making, and so you can consume more. But a wage change is going to be a shift in supply. I know in real life, these two words are synonymous. But like in this class, if they say the word income, they're trying to tell you it's a demand thing. So this is the money you make. If you want to add this to your notes, what you make, then so it's shifting demand, while wage is the what you have to pay your workers. And that's a supply shifter. Because if your wages go up, you're going to have to pay your workers more. It's like your chocolate chips have just become more expensive. You can't make as many chocolate chip cookies. Of course, if wages go down, then you can make more things because you're saving money on production. Okay, so if you want to add that to your notes, income and wages and all that. I think we have one more question, maybe not. If not, we are combining aggregates, supply and demand. Yay. Big day. Fantastic. I know you guys are thrilled. I'm thrilled. You're thrilled.
So can your income and your wage be two different things?
They're not going to have a question or incomes and wages are changing. They're going to stick with one question.
Well, I'm trying to understand it.
Well, it's just semantics. Like the semantics of the question is like, if incomes increase by 2%, what happens to aggregate supply and demand? Yes, real life, both things are going to probably be changing because yes, your income is money you make, but it's also someone has to pay you. But if they use the word income, you're shifting demand only. If they're using wage, you're shifting supply only. In real life, so many variables are happening, like the graph's going all at once, but it's like ceteris paribus. Like keep other things equal. If I say income, I mean demand. If I say wage, I mean supply. Okay, we have one more. We might have one more. And on your phone now. This tests your AP US history knowledge. I don't think I've said this in class. So if you feel like, oh, I don't know this at all, that is okay. By the end of today, you will know stagflation. But it was definitely covered in AP US history. Did they?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I haven't watched those videos in like a year and a half. So I don't remember what each specific one is.
A little bit.
Did we talk about this?
Yeah, you said stagnation and inflation.
Stagflation. Stagnation. I mean, it is. It's not an Okay, let's see how, well, 60%. Still waiting on a few of you to submit. Everything, don't we? Okay. Stagflation is, what's the root, well, there's two root words here. What's the second root word of stagflation? Inflation. What is inflation again?
Rising prices.
Price going up. So let's say like I threw this graph on the board here, but you could just do like a little sketch, and we're going to be putting them together today, so it might not be natural right now to like have everything together, but this aggregate demand, short run aggregate supply, long run aggregate supply, price level, real GDP. Remember what?
That side is punched.
I have a degree, I can do what I want. But if aggregate demand remains the same and aggregate supply increases, which way is increasing, Courtney?
What?
Which way, which direction is increasing?
To the right.
To the right. So just like in PBF curves, aggregate demand, aggregate supply is going to go to the right if it increases. And Luis, if aggregate supply increases and shifts to the right, what happened to prices?
They
Well, here's our original price level and here's
Oh.
our new price level.
and they go down.
They go down. Is that inflation? Prices going down?
No.
No. Let's see. Raise your hand if you got it right, 4 of you.
I don't think so.
Shit, don't even remember what you put. Okay. Yay! Notes. So we are combining aggregate supply and aggregate demand on the same graph, and we'll never have them apart anymore. They will always be together. So we're never just shifting like demand by itself, like with other lines not being there. It's all going to be the same. So I actually don't like this graph at all. I'm going to redraw it. I need to redraw it anyway. So we have price level on the Y. What can be on the x-axis? Morgan, what's on the x-axis? There's several things that you could label the x-axis as. Y. It also could be, what, Mario? Besides Y, what else could you put there? Real GDP. You can even put real output. You can put total income. Those are all synonyms of GDP. But typically, you're probably going to see Y or real GDP or R GDP. We have aggregate demand slope downwards labeled AG1. Short run aggregate supply curve slope upward labeled SRAS1 for short run aggregate supply. So S. And then we have long run aggregate supply intersecting in the middle. LRAS. Where they intersect is equilibrium. Boop, 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 boop. You make the noise. It actually helps you graph better. Scientifically proven. 1 and 1. I believe last year and the year before people have said that they hear people during A/B testing.
Kind of a stress reliever too.
Yeah, kind of. It's a nice. Boops are nice. It's just good when they're all even and balanced. Yeah. The right size.
Art.
Dotted line.
Have you seen him? Yes, I saw him. Someone sent me the link or something on Twitter, and he could just, it's like on a chalkboard, and so he just drags his chalk across, and the way he does it at the angle, it skips, and he makes a dotted line like that. Like that quickly. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, it's amazing.
Professor.
Yeah, I don't know what, it's not a eco, it's like, I don't know, it's like doing triangles.
It's like this montage of him just moving dotted lines.
Yes.
This is for Kristen.
Have a nice day.
Welcome.
Okay, anyway, we assume, hey,
If we don't put the 0, like, is that bad?
I prefer having an origin. Technically, the AP test, I don't think will count off because on their rubrics, they don't have an origin. But I think it helps people remember that, like, getting closer to that number of 0 means smaller and less and decreasing. So I think it helps people. If you are not used to drawing it or if you forget, I don't think it's going to count off. It will count off if you do not put the equilibriums. If you do not do, like, dots with 1s on it, it is wrong. It's not just like, Ms. Taylor likes it having equilibriums labeled. No, it is like incorrect. You will not be counted right. There's one of you in here whose older brother always forgot the boost and probably never got an FRQ correct fully because he would never remember equilibriums. Yeah.
We got a 5 on me.
Yes, but every one of my tests, I'm like, you got like a 9 out of 10. He's like, what did I miss? I'm like, equilibriums. It's like, oh my gosh, that's so stupid. Yeah. Hey, Kay, what's going on?
And
Hello. Okay, so this is helpful. Hey, Santiago.
in the long run, aggregate supply does touch the.
It does. That is the only, I'm trying to think, there's like maybe one other line that does, but later we'll talk about, actually, Friday, we learned a new graph. And that touches the equilibrium as well, but this one as well.
Okay.
So we assume a couple things when we're here, when we're at this equilibrium point. We assume that we're fully employed and we have stable inflation. Raven, do you remember what percentage of inflation we want? What number? It's not a range, it's just a number. This percent of inflation is what we are aiming for. No, don't listen to him. Okay. I don't know. It's less. 2% inflation is what we're going for. What he said is 4 to 6%. That's the unemployment. So we assume full employment of 4 to 6% of unemployment. Remember, that's the natural rate of unemployment. Okay. Sometimes we're at equilibrium. Sometimes we are in long-run equilibrium and we are on LRAS and everything is perfect because we're at full employment and we have good prices. But sometimes we're not. Sometimes we're in disequilibrium. Sometimes we are not. Or like sometimes the economy's not here. Sometimes you can have a recession. Can I go to the next page? Okay.
Yes.
Sometimes you have a recession. Before you draw this, I want you to look at it and try to figure out what happened to this graph that made it look like this. What line shifting which direction caused, I want you to think, your head. What, I want you to turn to someone next to you and I want you to come up with like an idea. And then I'm going to ask. It's like a poll of which line shifting what. So, what line do you think shifted which direction for this graph to end up like this? Should we draw that? Not yet. I want you to draw in a second after we know what we're graphing. Okay, raise your hand if you think it is aggregate supply, short run aggregate supply shifting that caused that to happen. Okay, raise your hand if you think it's aggregate demand that shifted, that caused that to change. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Raise your hand if you think it was LRAS that shifted, that caused that to change. 1, 2, 3. Okay, the majority of you are right by saying aggregate demand shifted that caused that to happen. What is a recession, Jake? Like what causes a recession? That is a result of a recession, but that's not the cause. Cole, what's the cause of a recession? Like what causes our GDP to fall?
Could be higher inflation or unemployment.
Those are results, and you're not going to have high inflation during a recession because it's not like no one's buying my stuff. Let me raise the prices.
Like we reach a peak.
Yeah, but why does it go down?
Because the economy
And right.
business lack of consumption.
What?
Lack of consumption.
People stop spending money, or businesses stop spending money, or the government, like one of these goes down to where GDP goes down. And so that's those are aggregate demand shifters. What is this graph originally? Like this showed after the shift. This is where it was. Aggregate demand curve was here in equilibrium. And then aggregate demand shifted from 81 to 82. Here is your original prices. Here's your new price. Here's your original GDP. And here's your new GDP. Prices fell. GDP fell. Now I want you to draw it. I'll give you some time. Draw it in equilibrium first, and then shift aggregate demand to the left.
Can we shift the one we already drew?
No, because that is labeled, you title that long-run equilibrium. This is not long-run equilibrium. If you're titling this graph, you're titling this one Recessionary Gap.
You should get a sheet of paper printed that has a bunch of graphs.
No. Nope.
It costs money to print.
That, and you need to get used to drawing the axes and drawing the graph. Because on the AP test, they just give you line paper. They don't just give you axes.
What I miss?
Long run aggregates. Why? I don't know when you left.
I made this the first thing. First,
Okay.
yeah.
This is our second one that we did.
Okay.
Lucky for you, she's recording this.
That's true. I am
Oh,
recording.
yeah.
I just have to go back and find that 2 minutes. Caitlin, what's the definition of a recession? I am. On your phone. Nothing's out. Except for your phone.
Well,
I know!
Sorry.
We still have to graduate high school.
yeah, I know, but I felt like I should just wait to get the notes instead of
Get just the last quarter of it. Okay, maybe get your old notes and go back to like the definition of a recession.
It's really cool. You get to hear this
Yeah, I know
conversation
that.
all over again. We listen to the recording.
Oh, I'm not close to my own
Well,
recording.
no, but we will. I get to hear all the little things that we're whispering to the entire time. I'm kidding. How's it going?
Wednesday, a week from today. Our next test is not easy.
that says PL2, right?
That does. Yeah, our next test, I think the average goes down about like 10 to 15 points on average. Well, just keep in mind that even though the test is timed, there are some questions that are going to be like easy, easy, easy. You spend less than 30 seconds on it. So then the math ones, you've had time built up from previous fast questions. So, I mean, there is some math. I mean, there's probably,
What if we're an idiot though?
what?
Oh.
What if you're what?
I thought they did that.
Well,
Well, that's
I-
loophole.
no.
I'm gonna fail.
Caitlin, did you remember how long GDP has to fall before it's considered a recession?
6 months.
6 months. Can you come up here to this board and just point out, just like, I don't even want you to write anything. Just point out GDP falling? Yes, you can do it. I believe in you. A sticker is coming. You're ready to do this.
Is it? I want to say it's a shift to the left, but then I feel like it's not.
No, it's already shifted to the left. And because of it, it caused a recession, which is GDP falling.
Yeah.
Can you show me, like someone that like, I don't know how to read a graph, I don't know where GDP is on this thing and how to see that it's falling. Can you show me
That's
that?
the real GDP.
Yes, and now it is,
Right there.
and it's getting closer to the number.
Two.
Oh, gosh.
Two, sorry.
No, you're right.
Oh.
Zero is right.
See, if I'm not wrong, that's why you gotta put your word in.
Yay! Did you just point to like this space right here? You know what we're like, what this is called? Brayden? A recessionary gap. Where's the gap? Here it is.
It's not called an output gap.
It's also called an output gap. Output gaps and recessionary gaps are all the same thing. So if you see some worksheets say output gap, some worksheets say recessionary gap, some worksheets just say recession, then it's all going to be the same thing.
What does the I stand for in real aggregates supply?
Where are you looking at?
Right, the vertical one.
The vertical. That's L.
Oh,
LRA is for long run aggregate supply.
oh, okay.
In higher level eco classes, like in college, you would have to figure out the area of this.
Oh, no.
So you know exactly how much you're in a recession by, so you then know how much to spend. Like how to fix it. Like I need to know where I want to be. Like how far am I behind my potential? Oh, I'm X amount far. Okay, now I know with my MPC this or my NPS this, how much to change spending and or taxes by. Make sense? Yeah. We're not figuring out the area. But it would be like, you have to like change this and like this, that's a square, and that's a rectangle, and like that's a rectangles. That's a triangle, I'm dumb. That's a triangle, square, and then it's just like, figure out the area of this, and the area of this, and the area of this, and then add those areas together.
Trapezoid.
And then the money is
Trapezoid H times B1 plus B2.
cool. I don't remember. I remember like base times height, and something. Hey!
So first, recessionary gap, the aggregate demand curve, all this other shit.
A recessionary gap is caused by less or a decrease, whatever, of aggregate demand. Typically by less consumption or less investment spending.
So like
Or any of the following. Less net exports, less government spending. Any of those shifters of aggregate demand to the left causes a recessionary gap. But there can also be another type of gap. Now recession, what's the opposite of a recession? Inflation. There are two types of inflationary gaps. Can anyone remember? Sticker. There's three causes of inflation. What are they?
Sticky prices.
That's different. That's different. Courtney.
Quantity theory, cost push, and demand pull.
Okay, we can't graph quantity theory. That's no way to graph that. But we can graph the other two. Cost push and demand pull. They're up there. The answers were there the whole time. Gotcha. So there's two different causes of inflation, two different ways you can graph the inflationary gaps. Say it again. The first one, like a recession, a cause, a less aggregate demand.
That's it.
Less consumption, less investment spending, less government spending, less any of the things that would shift aggregate to the left, Carson, would cause a recession, yes.
Do we write
Do I get a
them
sticker for
too?
that?
You do get a sticker for that. Here you go. Let's just look at the first one before we draw the first one. Let's look at it. What shifted? And this one's easier than the previous one. What shifted and in which direction to cause cost push inflation?
Short run.
Short run, aggregate supply shifting to the left. Okay? Typically, because costs of inputs have gone up. But it could be any of the leftward shifts of supply. Like here's a poster, I need to get more space. Here's a poster of the shifters of supply, and there's less number of sellers, higher input prices, less technology, less productivity, whatever. If it's less aggregate supply, short run aggregate supply, then it's going to be cost push inflation.
It doesn't go up.
Don't say up, you can say left or right.
You know, like seriously, it goes left or right, not up or down.
Right. Correct.
Okay, cool.
In this case, it goes to the left, which is why it's correct, but not right. Because that'd be wrong.
English
Correct.
is a fun language.
Okay, so, Cooper, what's inflation again?
Prices rising.
Prices rise. Show me prices rise. Point to it.
The price level was up
From,
PL1 to PL2.
and that's the gap, right there. That's space. So a recessionary gap was down on the x-axis. An inflationary gap is going to be on the y-axis because that's what inflation is prices going up over time. Does anyone remember another word that we just talked about? That I was like, GDP goes down, the economy sucks, but there's inflation. And we had inflation. Say it again. Stagflation. Cost push inflation is also called stagflation. Stagflation and cost push inflation are synonyms. They're the same thing. Economists are probably going to use the words cost push inflation, while historians will probably use the word stagflation. But they're the same thing. But the other type of inflation is demand pull inflation. Georgia, what shifted and in which direction to make demand pull inflation? And what happened to prices? Increasing. That's how you know it's inflation. Like if you have aggregate demand shift to the left, you're like, that cannot be inflation because prices are going down. So you just make sure you remember the definitions of things. So aggregate demand goes from AD1 to AD2. Prices go up. GDP is also going up. Whatever.
So, stagflation, everything's good, but it just so happens.
Stagflation is awful. Stagflation is almost worse than a recession. Because in a recession, sure, you don't have a job, but like prices are going down, so that's good, I guess.
Everything was okay except the prices were high.
No, your GDP went down. So like you're out of a job and now things are more expensive.
That's what demand pull
Demand pull is like the economy is like, you tend to use the word overheated. Like everyone has a job and prices are going up because of it. This is where we're headed. If like interest rates don't change, if certain things don't change, we are headed in that direction. I have seen, and you will see this, you'll probably not just see it, you're probably writing it, like I don't know, for a few things. Sometimes instead of labeling this like 1 and 2, like 1 and 2, LRAS is sometimes labeled, unfortunately I don't have any space here, but it's labeled YFE. What could the FE stand for? Not iron.
Fixed economy.
Free enterprise, not free enterprise.
Fixed economy.
No.
Free economy.
No. This is long-run equilibrium, and think about our two assumptions that we just wrote down. We have stable inflation and full employment. That FE stands for full employment. Those are pretty good guesses. Those are all at least FE guesses. People are all like, full inflation. That would be FI. Like, full inflation. That prices are over here. Like, you can't have prices over prices. What's the relationship between prices and prices? Upward sloping because of prices. No. So full employment. So, hold on. How can you be past that? If full employment is that LRAS, and this is like our full potential, and remember, LRAS is like what other graph? The PPF curve. Wait, this equilibrium is past our full potential. That's like having a point out here. I thought that was impossible. Now we can have it? Carson?
Well, could it be if employment is below 4%?
Full employment doesn't necessarily mean 0%. It's the 4 to 6%. Can you have less than 4 to 6%? Yes, if you have 2% unemployment or 3% unemployment, then you'd be past full employment. You'd be better than full employment. Of course, what happens when you're like fully employed and past that? Inflation. That becomes the other problem. So if you're below that, that's a recession. But if you're past that, that's inflation right there. And it's just not sustainable over time. It's not, I mean, PPF, they always say it's impossible. But when it comes to this graph, we just say it's just not sustainable. Oh my God. Can you see that? It's not sustainable. You can read that. You probably have 20/20 vision. It's not sustainable over time. Is anyone a runner? Like, you know what your mile time is?
Jake.
Jake? You know what your mile time is? Are you in a car?
He's in cross country.
Oh, you're a car. I didn't know you're a cross country.
He's in varsity. He's the best on the team.
Whoa. But you're not anymore.
Yeah, it's like
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
he's always on the track squad.
So, Jake, 4:40 for a mile.
yeah.
So let's say you run 30 miles in a row. Will they all be 4:40?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Used to go probably not.
Why not? I thought that was your best time. If you can do it one time, you should do it every time.
Well, are they in a row or are they like?
In a row.
Oh. I get tired.
You will get tired. And that's why it's not sustainable, because these are machines working 24 hours a day. And eventually they're going to wear and tear. And just like your body gets tired, machines and factories get tired too.
Plastic surgery.
What?
You just did plastic surgery.
Not on the robots. They're beautiful, like, big boobed robots. Okay, so this is where unemployment is lower than the natural rate. Remember, the natural rate of unemployment is not 0. Good job, Carson. You said it would be less than the natural rate. Yes. It's not sustainable because you would be doing your best all the time and eventually you'll wear out.
We should just always have to do our best all the time instead.
You should do that. Everyone should do their best all the time. But, you know, you're not because you're... Who's tapping? Look at mine. Okay, I am giving you... I said the second period. I didn't say it third. because I wasn't sure.
We're third.
I know.
When you say like,
I said the second period. I didn't say it yet, third.
okay,
I want to make sure that everyone has the same information.
okay.
But I said it in such a perfect way, second period. I don't know if I'll be able to repeat it perfectly and not confuse people third. So here we go. LRAS is most like which other graph? This? It's this. Does the PPF curve shift? Yes. What are the shifters of the PPF curve?
GDP,
Not G's. A change in what?
quantity, quality of the
Change in just FOPs, the quantity of factors of production, land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship. This is the same as that. Whatever shifts this also shifts this. So the question is, can LRAS shift? The question, the answer is yes. But in this class, we will not shift it. Does it shift? Yes. Whatever shifts the PPF curve also shifts LRAS. But the majority of our questions that we're going to be graphing are going to be short run questions. What happens in the short run? What happens in the short run? So you're going to be shifting SRAS, short run aggregate supply. That's going to be the one that you're going to be shifting 99.99999% of the time. Will LRAS shift? Yes. We won't ever draw it, but we will write about it. We will say, in the long run, aggregate supply will increase. We won't draw it. Like, we will never do like that. But we will talk about, we will like write in words on an FRQ, like long run, aggregate supply increases, blah, 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 because more FOPs. Okay. There's going to be someone in like 2 months that will just take my words and completely manipulate them. And they'll say, well, you said LRAS never shifts, so that can't be the right answer. Wednesday. You'll say that Wednesday. Not Wednesday. You'll say it Thursday as we go over the test from Wednesday. And I'll be like, no, I said we won't physically draw it, but it does shift, and we will write about it or have multiple choice questions about it, but we won't actually draw a line, draw another vertical line, and have an arrow in between the lines. We won't do that. It's my gift from me to you. Yeah. Some of you might be the only Valentine's Day gift you get.
Whoa.
What?
Hey, Taylor, that's so far.
Ooh. Not me,
Especially
okay.
for Jake. That's a sensitive issue.
What?
That's a sensitive issue for Jake.
Oh.
I'm just kidding.
Yes, I saw one. I saw one this morning. It didn't look like a heart. Like it looked just like a pile of poop. Like it,
Like a
just
biscuit.
looked, like it just was like, that's supposed to be a heart? It looked like... Okay, that's the phallic.
Oh, that's not the tape.
Oh, that's hard. Okay. Draw three graphs. I've got $49. A couple of them. You have to click in the settings, like monetize, and then it's too much work.
You should monetize it. Monetize it and watch it over and over again.
No, it's not the watching. You have to like click on the ads.
You get like $1 per 1,000 views.
It's not that much. Like it's maybe $1 per like 10,000 views or something. Like it's not that
Oh,
much.
that's for like preferred ad.
Yeah.
No, you have to get big and then you make money.
Yeah, you should be a vlogger.
I should be like Mr. Clifford.
Like Jake Paul.
Oh, I need to do that. I do. I
You could be
do.
the K Taylor.
Haters.
And your haters can became haters.
Okay. What is this graph called? No, don't do this. Long run equilibrium. Sometimes we can start off from long run equilibrium. That's one situation that we can start off from, like on an FRQ, possibly next week. Okay, fine. Tomorrow and next week.
Okay.
I think I was happy with that.
Or we can start from a recession. Okay. I want you to look at the recessionary gap that you just drew. And I want you to imagine what it looks like if you took that first aggregate demand curve off and you just had it post-shift. Post-shift. Don't have it with a shift, have it after the shift. Like we are already in a recession. Can anyone tell me, if we're at equilibrium here, where is long run equilibrium in a relationship to that point if we're already in a recession? And we're not. It's not there too, because that's equilibrium. So where is it?
To the right.
To the right. Post shift, this is where you can start off from a recession. How do you show a recession on a PDF curve? So just a point inside the curve? That's a recession? So you're here, this is your point. If you're to curve this LRAS, it's straight right now, but if you were to like curve it back, that point would be inside the curve. They're the same thing. So that is a point inside the curve, that is a point inside the curve. So an inflationary gap, unfortunately, we cannot start off with cost push inflation. It's not possible to show that. Because if you took off the first aggregate supply curve before it shifts, it would actually look like a recessionary gap. And a recessionary gap and stagflation are not the same thing, so you can't start off from stagflation, but you can start off from demand pool. Look at your demand pool graph that you just drew. Imagine the first aggregate demand curve is gone, and you only have the second aggregate demand curve. It's post-shift. Where is LRAS? To the left. Just like a point outside the PPF curve, your LRAS like your PPF curve, and you were outside of it. Have a great afternoon.